Welcome back to Witness Stories. I call this Past Life as Black Eagle. I wanted to produce this video. Originally all this is for my grandchildren because they probably aren't interested in this subject as much as they might be later. And by then, I might be gone. So how do you pass information to your children when they're not really into it? So this is giving them a chance. And if you happen across this channel, you're welcome to the information too. The purpose I have for them is to educate them, and so I don't mind educating you as well. But so this one is about a very significant past life to me, and I guess the purpose for you or anybody else is to kind of show you the interplay of past lives and how they affect current life, although you're supposed to live this life and not live that past life. In my current life, I am allowed, or part of my life plan here is to learn about these things. I am aware of some of my future life plan purposes, which I'm fairly old right now, but apparently I have more duties or missions to perform in this lifetime. But these stories I'm putting out, a very odd thing happened I don't know, 15 years ago or 10 years ago, I forget when, but I mentioned this in earlier stories, that I ran across a medium who tagged me with the thing, her guides that told her I was the oracle. That completely opened my eyes. So perhaps being an oracle as a person who tells you what the truth is as best they know it, that's to oracleize. So maybe these stories are part of my being an oracle. I don't know. But I hope you benefit from the stories. So here we go. This is the past life about on the subject of Black Eagle. It is known to us that my wife, us meaning my wife and I, we are twin spirits. We are scooped out of the same stuff, which is what you would call being the child of. But in the consciousness world, you're scooped out of another larger, more divine consciousness. That's their form of being born, I guess. My wife and I wanted to know of any prior life that we had together. So we did not know that many of those, we did know that many of those had been tragic. Even beyond the fact that normally at the end of life we all have to lose ones we loved, just for a little while anyway. My wife and I had been in a situation where she almost always died first. So all of my life, and the way it turned out in my lifetime now, before I knew that, I had this thing about me. All of my life I hated any movie or story where the woman dies. I hate that, especially if she is not old, is loved by someone, or doesn't deserve it. And if children are left behind, just doubles everything. I do assume all men share similar feelings if they are still open to being the protector role in life, but it was somewhat acute for me. And do I have a little extra reason to be this way? Well, so we both did some past life regression on this. She had the first impressions, and for some number of sessions we focused on that one, her impressions. After that, I did some thought forming on various parts of the unfolding story. And we also filled in some parts via the use of a reliable medium or two. This is the final assembled version. I, at some point in history, was part of the Cherokee Nation. Sometime before it adopted a federalization nation concept. And keep in mind, this was never a codified permanent deal. It's just what they have either a historical knowledge of or a tradition of doing, but they don't write things down. So I don't know which tribe I was in. History says there were 7 tribes of people of a similar race in the Cherokee Nation, what later is called the Cherokee Nation. These tribes lived in a countryside where more tribes that existed were seen as very different from those 7. You need to understand that 90%, by way of background here, you need to understand that 90% of the American Orient had passed from imported diseases before any permanent white man civilization was ever established. This life story was pretty well before that, before the establishment of civilization. All indigenous tribes were often very contentious with each other back then, and always had been, especially where the face, that is, the races measured by the face or other features, were divergent from each other, just as judgmental as modern man is to each other. In my tribe, I was the son of the chief, and for us, in the line of chiefs, all had blue eyes. So the son was normally expected to be the next chief. It was leadership hereditary measure up to that point. So you needed to be the son of somebody who was a chief. And one needed to look and act the part. I should mention that the Cherokee tended to look a little bit more like white people when white people finally showed up than the other indigenous tribes. Just a bit. So as I grew up in that tribe, I was expected to be fierce, fearless, and brave. We practiced our knife fighting often. And knives back then, I think, probably were not always the steel type. Steel did not appear for the Indians until trading on the coast started providing metals for that. Nobody on the Americas made their own metals or their own steels. They had to trade it with whatever happened to show up at the coast. I think knives were appearing once in a while for my tribe, so trading had been going on somewhere. Anyway, I was expected to prove that I was worthy of being the next chief. I do not remember any positive interactions from my father. I think he was gone a lot. And I was only raised by the inner circle of women and their competitive sons, competitive with me and each other. I constantly had to earn my leadership over these boys. So I want you to know that, again, steel knives did not exist until white traders established an existence on the coast in America. By then, fur trading on the coast was in high demand by the whites, and the native people wanted steel weapons above all other commodities. Most tribes had never seen a white man even having traded furs for steel. They saw steel well before they ever saw these traders from Europe. But all were perhaps traders also from the Asian countries. They never saw any of those people to the inside of the country. But large amounts of that steel was well after the events of the story. It occurs to me right now, being the chief of the Sun, if there was any steel available for knives, being the chief's son, I probably would have had one of the earliest knives that showed up, if I had anything like that. I don't remember for sure. I'd have to do some more regression to find out if we had steel. But I know we had never seen any white people. So in my current life, this one now, I do not react badly to cuts. I just tape them up, treat the wound well, and it heals back. No big deal. My wife says I am now, and was as Black Eagle, very weirdly nonchalant and dismissive about it all. But I'm very much different about permanent disfigurement, believe me. But just some cuts in your skin, no big deal. No, I don't like it, but I'm not going to like weird out on it either. It all heals. So back to the Black Eagle life. At the right age, as a youth, I went through my vision quest. This is when the name Black Eagle was given to me. And in researching the word black, would also refer to the shadow of a ghost or spirit. So the English equivalent to this would be spirit eagle, would be the inferred meaning. The other part of that quest experience is that I had visions of my future wife. I saw her as a woman of pure white skin, red hair, and especially blue eyes, just like I was supposed to have. I had. So in our tribal experience, there was no hint that this was possible. Like I said, I'd never seen a white person. It's just maybe not even a rumor in my tribe. I don't know. So there was lots of doubt. But it was my vision, and I had no doubt. She would be my true love. As time went on, I proved to be very stubborn about my vision. After all, I'm the chief's son, so I'm sure I had some ego about that. I just doubled down and believed even more. It was a contention I held very close. I was young at that time, and as I grew up, this vision never left me. I never became romantic towards any woman in our tribe. I rejected all of that, waiting for her. As I came into marriage age, I refused to pick a wife or anyone to birth a child for me. This was becoming a concern for my father. He wanted to know for sure that the line would continue on. And incidentally, those women who were taking care of me, they would be highly key to have that happen too. The tribe's identity sort of depended on that. Their sense of safety depended on that. They wanted to have a leader they could all agree on. And would blue eyes again occur? I refused all opportunities otherwise. And my father never produced another blue-eyed son. I don't have a memory of any other sons he might have had, but certainly no blue-eyed ones. The chief of this tribe was a very important concept of leadership. They felt they needed strong, reliable leadership. It was a very challenging and dangerous world. There needed to be no hint of weakness, as the competing tribes are always willing to take advantage. Even the tribes with similar racial features were competitive, even violent towards us, and us to them, I assume. There was always the possibility of women, food, children disappearing, having been taken. They may not have known it, but of course these events did provide some, to avoid some inbreeding, and it did not help develop trust between the tribes either. Theft of women was constant between the 7 tribes, being more desirable than ones from beyond the 7. This was a sore spot between them once in a while, most of the time, at that time. I don't have memories of horses at that lifetime, so I don't know if any were yet in the Americas, in that part of America at the time. At some point, our warriors traded with other tribes for one captured woman. This was the first white woman we had ever seen. The warriors were my peers of the same age, and they knew, and unlike the women of my village, supported, at least some of them, supported my dedication to this vision. I suppose they didn't mind that I did not challenge them for other women in the tribe. When this woman appeared was offered up for trade, they figured this was her, so they brought her back. She was red-headed, very light-skinned, and to my amorous eyes, every bit the woman of my visions. I was already in love with her. It did not take very long until she loved me back. Soon we moved in together to share a teepee and a fire pit. This constituted marriage in the way of our tribe. At least that's the way I pulled it. The tribe, other than my peer warriors, did struggle with this quite a bit. This woman was not their race, not even close to the variations in race to the most remote of tribes we knew of. The older women and those in my age group were very disturbed by this turn of events. I heard plenty about it, but I was unmoved, and I just figured that I could force this situation based on my authority as the future chief. It fit the vision, didn't it? My father remained oddly neutral on this, but at some point the woman was with child, and once born, it was indeed a blue-eyed boy, but with her hair color, and I assume that skin tone. Or maybe not that skin tone. I'm not too sure about that. But that one attribute, the eyes, the chief could accept that. When the child was around 2, my father and I had to go out to fight or put pressure on other tribes to defend our hunting grounds. We were gone for days at a time. Knowing our normal cycle of time out, a few women of the village found my wife alone near the top of a local cliff. She may have been taking a moment to see if the war party was coming home. We often met there, her and I. I was her best friend at that point and her protector. So she wasn't real loved by the rest of the tribe, but I loved her. And I was the chief's son. But there, they cornered her at the top of the cliff and there stabbed her and pushed her over the cliff. In one of my regressions, I had the comment that how could they be so cruel? Complete with tears in my eyes, to tell you the truth. The plan may have been to blame it on attacks by other tribes, but unfortunate for them, they were seen. Within just hours, I returned and was told what had happened. I went to the cliff, seen the results, and brought her body back. I was beyond angry. I was beyond pain, beyond all forgiving of anything. I was even beyond so angry, I was beyond grief. I did not even care who actually did this. It was everyone's fault who could not accept my wife and child in peace. I think I may have even blamed my peers, the ones who were my friends, for not having anticipated this and done something about it. I was too angry to even consider their role or not in it. The whole tribe was blamed in my heart. That day, I abandoned the tribe. They did not deserve to have a chief from the line of chiefs. I left any idea that I could live with or belong to them again, not as a chief or a warrior. So I left. I was gone. As time went on, I cultivated the opinion that hate based on the idea of this race or the vision of somebody looking different was bad judgment. I also let some from my tribe who tried to bring me back that if they were to have any chief, it would have to be that child that I left behind. That was your next chief. They would have to accept what they thought of as different to be the chief. So he had the blue eyes and he was my child. The other choice could result to lose their cohesion as a tribe and possibly disband or at least be weakened in confrontation with the other tribes. They could not afford a weakness on their part. Fortunate for them, my father, the chief, was still there, so they could find he was still functional. They could follow his leadership. But after that, they did treat the child much better and did raise him up to be the next chief. At that point in time, having had my vision and most of the other understandings that native tribes had, I knew of spirits. And my love was now a spirit. She was over there. At some point, I came into contact with a shaman. I get the feeling he was not from the same 7 tribes that I was. And I had my attitudes different between, not being judgmental of him, so I was able to work with him. So he trained me into the shaman way. So one skill that you could have was hearing spirits. I hoped to contact my love that way. So I worked to become a skilled shaman very diligently. At some point, all these voices I could hear became troubling to me. I only wanted to hear my one love. It may have been I didn't hear her up to that point, so I was trying to funnel all that activity into just her so I could contact her. So I demanded, and was granted apparently from the spirit side, to not hear any voices except the ones I love and loved me in return. I was told in this current modern life, this is why I cannot hear voices from my guides in meditation today. So I have a block at the spirit level. The only exceptions have been close loved ones. Sometimes I can hear them in waking or when I'm ready to go to sleep. Sometimes I've heard stuff, but only then. But back in that life, I still had some earthbound service to provide. After she had passed, I had a life plan. This is part of my life plan, apparently. So what I did from then on was fulfilling the expectant results of my life plan. So, with guidance from the old shaman, I learned to be a wind walker. This was the skill to do several things. One was the ability to do lucid dreaming and out-of-body meditations. As part of that, I could enter into dreams and even materialize an appearance of myself at a fireside when the tribe members were meeting together. This would cause quite a stir, I should think. There were extreme struggles threatening our tribe and all the ones with similar people of those 7 tribes in that wider country region. So I formed a plan, and I would force the situation if I had to. I determined that they should form better relations with the other similar tribes, at least, to cooperate and survive better. And if they should encounter any really different, pale-skinned white people, they should be more open to working with them too. I think that was, even if I didn't pronounce that, I think that was in my head. I also wanted them to drop their extreme attitudes against anyone else not exactly like them. Like I say, especially including the white people should they show up. I did finally get them to accept a standard for cooperation and agreement that allowed them to act together in war and hunting. This did function like a prototype of the Cherokee Nation, but I don't think that was yet a solid concept during my lifetime. I just opened the door a bit wider. All I know is that many years later, the Cherokee Nation did not have much trouble with the idea of cooperation with white people when they later formed groups of them. And that this federation idea is what later influenced the formation of the U.S. Federation. It was part of their calculation and their experience. As I tried to influence the various tribes, some individuals did not like that very much at all. They tried to locate me in life and kill me. This would prove to be very difficult and never succeeded. First of all, my synchronicity in the wild was very good. I could know when an attempt was in play, and I was a good fighter. If I encountered one of those who tried, I did not kill them. I used this as a teaching moment. I did not actually care about my own life. I wanted to leave and be with my wife, but I did discover I cared about them. I cared about my tribes. I cared about all the tribes. And I would not leave this life, the life back there as the Indian, until old age took me. And I was very proud of the fact of how old I did live. I did live a very long time. I know my Cherokee self was very proud of that, but in the end was glad to go. And while alive, I took a heavy hand in guiding my tribe to being better than they were, but I would never live with them. My shaman way worked better that way too. Even in that time, the spiritual way was not always easy to accept for those who didn't understand. It was scary to them and a little bit suspicious, but that they depended on me for the various services that a shaman can do. It did help that my red-headed, white-skinned son was the chief later, at least of the one tribe, and probably got to be the federal leader at points in time too. But there was one other thing. I may have killed, in progress of my life, I may have killed a mother cougar or saw her die. And after that, I found a starving cougar kitten. I may have felt guilty or just a little lonely, maybe both. But I took this kitten and I kept it and fed it. The kitten and I slept together, and I fed and nurtured and nurtured it. We became my close family. We were buds, and I think it was a female. I believed it to be my best spirit animal. And together we could travel into the other worlds. That was useful too. When somebody would stalk me, the cat would know that, and at least a couple times it attacked or scared off would-be assassins. I also found opportunities and times to protect the cat as well. So in this modern life that I have now, I have an affinity for cats. I understand them, and they know it. So now, that's the end of that story. In this life, my wife and I have grown old together. We're happy with that. It's not what usually always happens with us, to grow old together. We have made each other's life peaceful and fulfilling, and we both love the other more than ourselves. And we also share a peaceful feeling that we will be together after this life is over, no matter what happens in between. I do still feel a duty to provide to others whatever I feel is truth. These stories are one little part of that intention carried over from just the way my personality is. Thanks for listening to my story. I hope you found it interesting.